Welcome to the All Things Admin Tech Crash Course. My name is Julie Perrine. I'm the founder and CEO of All Things Admin, and I'm very pleased that you are joining us for today's presentation. The Admin Tech Crash Course is a technology-focused training program for busy professionals. Our goal with each session is to create a crash course on the relevant technology topics that you need to stay current on the technology and software that you use each day, with the intent that you can become more productive and proficient in everything you do. Let me introduce today's webinar, Excel Basics, 7 Overlooked Features Every User Needs, presented by Donna Gilliland. Donna's career in technology began back when DOS was the king of computer operating systems for the personal computer. Floppies were actually floppy, and the internet had just begun to explode. At that time in her career, there were no training companies. You either learned it on your own or you went back to school to learn about the new technologies. Donna did both. Donna's career in the corporate world started as an executive assistant. She worked in a programming department supporting a staff of programmers and the VP of IT, but that was just the beginning. Over time, she realized that she had an aptitude for learning software technologies and the ability to communicate to others in terms that everyone could understand. Her love of helping people, business, and technology made it a great fit for her future career in teaching and speaking on this topic. Today, Donna is an award-winning technology instructor, a certified technology trainer, and the president of Most Training. Please join me in a warm virtual welcome for Donna Gilliland. Donna, welcome.
Thank you. Okay. Okay, you can let me know if you see my screen yet.
I can see it.
Okay, wonderful. Then we'll go ahead and dive straight in. If you read the list of objectives on Julie's site, then you know what we'll be covering today. And if you didn't, you're about to know soon. This workbook that I'm in now, I created sheets for each feature that I'm going to cover. And we're going to start today learning about how you can convert your data into a table. First, the conversion of data into a table means that right off, the information will be formatted in an eye-pleasing way. So as you look at my spreadsheet right now, it is there's no color, there's nothing that really draws the eye to a specific area. But that isn't the reason for conversion to a table. Converting to a table allows you to work with filters automatically along with several other features. So first, let's go over how you're going to convert your data into a table. And just one more thing before I go to that conversion. It is important in converting your information to a table that your data be laid out in columns and rows with no breaks, and that each column has its own unique heading, also known as a field name. This rule applies to a great many things that you will use feature-wise in Microsoft Excel, so keep those rules in mind. The reason why that your data does not need to have a break in terms of a column or a row is because Excel sees each break as being another data set. So now, let's begin. Just need to be somewhere in your data. You can do this one of two ways. You can go to the Insert tab, where you'll be at the Insert ribbon and you'll see a Tables group. It's the first group, and there's a Table button. Now, if you like keyboard shortcuts, and I do, you can also use Control-T as in Table. But I'm going to go ahead and stay with the ribbon, Insert and Table. And when you do this, regardless of whether you're taking the ribbon route or your keyboard shortcut route, you are prompted for confirmation that the range that Excel has detected as the range for converting to a table waits for you to respond if this is okay. Also notice that the My Table Has Headers is checkmarked, and you'll want to leave that check mark if indeed the very top row or your table headers, and mine are. So at this point, I'm simply ready to click on OK. Now after I do, take a look at my screen. I'll click out here for a moment and let you see. So the first visible clue that this information has been converted to a table is the fact that it has applied what is called a style. And the default style colors in Excel or in Office are blues and grays. That can be changed, but more about that another time. Now I'm going to click back inside my table, because if you're not in your table, you won't have the ribbon that has all the tools that allow you to work with your table. So as you look up at the top of my screen, here's the design ribbon, but it says Table Tools just above it. So there's one ribbon devoted entirely to working with this information as a table. So let's start off with one of the perks that you have in place beyond the fact that it's a lot more eye-appealing now. If you look at my column headings, date, first, last, etc., they now have a filter on them. So that's one of the other benefits, is that it converted it so that you would have a filter. Now if you've never used filters before, it's a way for you to extract subsets of information and leave the rest behind, and then when you want it back, you're just a couple of clicks away. So let's get started with a couple of examples of a filter, and then on to more of the perks that are available to you working with your data as a table. So I'm going to start with the destination. Oh, by the way, this spreadsheet is an example of a travel company. It's a list of their employees, what offices they work out of, and where they've been selling flights to, how much they're selling the tickets for, how many, how much, etc. So I want to see how many flights have been sold to New York. And after clicking the down arrow for the filter, down below is a list of everything that's shown here. And I'm going to deselect the select all, although that's not the only way. I could also go to text filters, choose equals, and then choose the New York. So that's another way as well. I'll deselect all, scroll down, there's New York, click OK, take a look at my screen. So all other information that doesn't apply is gone from sight for now until I clear the filter. What you see left is also what we'll print. You can also filter within a filter. At this point, I have all the destinations for New York, but maybe I'm interested in knowing how many of those flights that were sold going to New York, how many of those were sold out of the Minneapolis office. So here you have the office field, again the filter, the down arrow, and I'm going to choose to deselect all because I can see Minneapolis easy here, and click on OK, and now I have even less records. Now of course this particular piece of your training isn't so much about the filter, it is about learning this one piece of what converting to a table does for you. So what I'm going to do is clear everything. If I just wanted to clear one particular filter, if you look, you can see that Office has a filter button instead of a down arrow, as does Destination, because you're being given a visual that these are the fields that are controlling what's being displayed. And if I click the filter for Destination, I can choose to the option Clear Filter from Destination, but I still have a controlling filter, which is Office. And these are not the only ways in which to clear, at least in terms of clearing all. So that's the second perk, is the filter. Now let's go to the ribbon for a moment. On the ribbon, you have a list of table styles, so if you're not in love with the color combination that you're given by default, you can choose from among a number of styles to your liking. So let's go back to the ribbon. In the ribbon on the left, there is a Tools group. So with the Tools group, you have an option that says Remove Duplicates. You know, sometimes people, they have databases, large databases, and they download and they manipulate information in Excel from the downloaded information from a database. So there are various ways in which people bring information into Excel for data analysis, and sometimes there may be duplicates in the information they receive. So the button Remove Duplicates would go through and check for duplicate records. As soon as you click Remove Duplicates, you're presented with a list of all the fields, or column headings if you will, that are in this table. And they're all selected by default because I do want all of them searched. Now if I click OK, if there are any duplicates, and my data doesn't have any, it would tell me how many duplicates that there are and wait for me to confirm to eliminate them. But in my case, I have no duplicates. So that's another benefit of having converted to a table. And here's another. Going to the table style options, again, we're still in the design ribbon. I love this one. Total row will turn on an extra row at the bottom of your data and allow you to run calculations of varying types on each column with just a click. So I'm going to go ahead and turn the total row on, and I'm again in the table style options, clicking total row. Once I click total row, you will automatically be taken to the very bottom and you will receive an extra row. So here it says total, and then if I click in any cell beneath a column within that total row, I am presented with a down arrow, which gives me a list of functions that I can use on that column. And if the function I want to use isn't in this list, then I can choose more functions to create a formula for that column. And I'm going to do one for the amount. So clicking in the total row beneath the last value and amount, using the down arrow, I want to get an average amount. That's what I'm going to use. And after I do average amount, there it is. Now coming over to commission, commission is a column that is text, and it has values of either yes or no. So in case you're wondering, why does it say 199? When a column or field, if you will, contains text, then when the total row is turned on, the count function is performed. So this is saying that there are 199 entries in this column. But what if I wanted to count for for how many yeses, how many yes on commission are there in this column? Well, again, when I click the down arrow, what I need isn't in the list, but that's where more functions comes into play. So you're actually learning a little bit more right now because you're about to learn a formula that you might not have known about. This is a statistical function called COUNTIF. So I'm going to go to statistical, and I'm going to get to the COUNTIF. And click on OK. And COUNTIF waits for me to identify the range that I plan to count in. This is quite a large range, and what I'm doing, so I can quickly get this information selected, I am starting with the first cell, and I am pressing Control and Shift because Shift is for sequential selection. So Control, Shift, and a tap of my down arrow brings up, selects all that area for me. Only it's giving me one more that I don't need, so I need to fix that. So in the criteria, you can type whether you're looking for a count of a yes or a count of no. Just one moment. It grabbed my number just below. So as I correct this for us, what are you thinking so far? How are you liking this?
Personally, Donna, I can tell you I'm loving it because I've had some spreadsheets like this that once I converted them to tables, they had a lot of data, and it made it so much easier to manipulate the data and to make sure that I wasn't overlooking or not sorting correctly. So the filters was a huge plus, and the that total column at the bottom and the functions that are automatically there saved me countless hours of manipulating data in this multi-page spreadsheet that I was trying to make more user-friendly. So this is a great function or a great tool to start with. I love it.
So had you used it before, Julie?
I had not.
This particular, oh, okay, you have not, okay.
Yeah,
Well, I won't finish our formula just for time's sake, but just know that COUNTIF, which we're using, is a statistical function that only has 2 parameters, and that is you would specify the range that you are looking within, followed by a comma, and then the text criteria you are looking for in quotes. So if I were looking for the number of yeses. But I won't get too far off track because Julie and I have a special session for you out of this series that covers formulas. So if you're feeling like you're losing out by me not finishing that, no worries, we've got you covered in the series.
One quick question, Donna. If you were selecting, instead of doing the Control-Shift-Arrow, you could have just used your mouse and selected from that top cell all the way down to that last yes cell to make that your range,
oh, yes.
Correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. I certainly could have. And then, of course, when we have our next, one of our other series where the formulas are, you can also range name an area. So I could actually range name this entire area and then refer to it by name in the formula, which we'll be doing. But yes, you're right, in answer to your original question. So going back to the row, just so that we make sure you have clarification, in this column, we have the total column, we have tickets column. So maybe I want to know what the average number of tickets that have been sold are. So I'll go here to the tickets, down into the total row, click the down arrow, and there's average, and I have it. And of course I can format that using my knowledge, or you using your knowledge of formatting decimals so that they're down to 2 decimals. So that is the purpose of the total row, is to give you this quick method of running common functions that are in that initial list when you click the down arrow. But if you are formula proficient, then if what you need isn't in the list, you can go to more functions, as I was quickly demonstrating, and pull the one you need and write the formula. Now keep this in mind about the total row. If you convert your table back into standard standard data, and I'll explain what that means in a moment, the total row stays with it. There are certain things in Excel that can't be done to your data if it's still as a table. So there are going to be some instances when you have to convert it back just to standard data arrangement. But if I converted it back, which I'll show you how in a moment, it's called convert to range. If you don't turn the total row off, it will remain, but it won't remain as dynamic, meaning it's just going to be the numbers that you ran last, but you'll have no down arrows once you convert this back to a normal range. It's just going to be static numbers at that point. And I'm going back to the design ribbon, and I'm going to choose the total row, deselect total row, so that my total row is not in place when I convert this back to a range. Now I could spend more time, but we have lots of things for you to cover in a short period of time. So by way of recap, we took data and converted it into a table so that we would have several conveniences. One, it would give us some aesthetic appeal. Two, we would have filters built in automatically. Otherwise, you can turn on your filter by going to the data ribbon and turning on a filter. The third is having the ability to have the program go through the data and look for duplicates and remove them. And a fourth that was demonstrated was turning on the total row so that you could run quick calculations at the end of each column. Now I'm going to convert this back to a normal range so you can see what happens. So here it says convert to range. I'm asked, do I want to convert the table to a normal range? And I'll choose yes. And then when you look at it, you're probably thinking, well, it looks like it's still there to me. Well, that's because the only thing that it doesn't convert backward is the style. You can always go to the home ribbon and change your style if you like, but that's the only thing that remains in front of you that gives you any clue that your data was ever in the form of a table. So we're going to move on to the next feature, and that would be the subtotal feature. So I'm going to go to a different sheet, and you are welcome to this file. I will be sending it to Julie, and then she can see that you all get this one file. So it's actually one workbook that I've customized with different sheets, and you can go back and practice for reinforcement. The subtotal feature that you're being taught will allow you to group information together and then run subtotals. For example, I want to group all the offices together. So here are the offices. I want to group all the New Yorks together, all the St. Peters together. And within that grouping, I then want to run subtotals on my amount and on my tickets. But before I do it, keep this in mind. When you use this subtotal feature, you've got to make certain that whatever field you're using for grouping purposes, in our case, office, it must be alphabetized. That's a requirement. So I'm going to go ahead and alphabetize this office column. So AZ, now they're all in order. So once in order, from the data ribbon, the very last group of tools is called Outline. Within Outline, you have a subtotal button. When you click, all your data will then be selected in the background. So let's work with your subtotal dialog box from top to bottom so you have a clear understanding of what you're working with. The very top box says, at each change in date. When the subtotal box appears, it will always pull the first column out of all your data. But that's not the column that we plan to group by. We're going to change our at each change in. We're changing that field from date to office. That's the one I previously alphabetized and the one that I am grouping by. Second is, what type of function are you planning to use? I want to perform a summation. Clicking the down arrow, I choose sum. Now moving to the third part of this dialog box, it says as the title, add subtotal to. And you have a list of all the fields that are in your data. And you've got to pick which field or fields you want the summation to be performed on. And the last column, commission, is checkmarked. So just remember that default for subtotal is that the program always picks the very last column in the selected data. Well, I'm going to take off commission because I'm interested in seeing a subtotal on my tickets, a subtotal on my totals. I'll make that an amount and tickets. Then going further down, it has checkmarked replace current subtotals. What that's saying is that if your data currently has any subtotals, it will replace the subtotals you've created through some other means. It will replace it with what you are stating here. The second box, unchecked, says page break between groups. So that means if Julie wanted to give the information that has to do with the Blaine office to the manager of Blaine, if she chooses page break between groups, then we can have it broken down by offices and then give to whoever the manager is of that office, whatever the case might be. I won't choose that one. There's no need in this exercise. And then it tells us that all the summarizing is going to be performed below the data that we've checkmarked. So everything has been specified. Now we're going to click on OK, and then I want you to look at my spreadsheet. Look really closely. Here's Blaine, but look, there's Blaine total. At least let me clarify. Blaine total is the label for the values that are to the right. So here is the total for the amount for Blaine. Here are the total number of tickets for the Blaine office. So as you scroll, or as I scroll down, every office has its own total row summarizing those fields that I asked for. Now, if you think that's great, it gets even better. This information, once you run the subtotal on it, the information is actually placed in an outline that you can collapse and expand. So if you look over to the far left of my screen, I've got my arrow moving, you can see there are vertical lines running down the left, each with a dash. And the vertical line, each vertical line is representative of, each office. So we'll start with Blaine. Here's Blaine's vertical line. Here is the collapse expand tool. When I click the minus, it will collapse it, and if you'll look closely, it's just the Blaine label, Blaine total, being shown. And I can go from section to section doing that. However, you might find it a lot more helpful if you could just break it down to just the references to each office and see the grand totals on the amount and the tickets. So that means move your eyes back to the left of my screen and look. These are very small. Hope you can see them. You have level numbers there to the left of column A, the letter A. There's a 1, a 2, and a 3. These outline level numbers let you control the amount of information that you see as a whole rather than going individually and collapsing an office set of detail. For example, if I click the 1 level number, I am brought to the grand total of everything, all offices, and I see the amount and I see the tickets. So all offices, grand total of over 61,000 with a sale of 388 tickets. If I click level number 2, I'm going back to the left of column A. Clicking level number 2 gives me one reference to each office and gives me the total amount and the total number of tickets for that office. Where if I go to level 3, I'm going back to what I started with. I'm seeing all of them. I'm seeing the salespeople, and I'm also seeing my totals. So subtotaling can be your best friend, and that can save you possibly, hours. And to turn it off when you're through working with it and you don't want it in this arrangement anymore, you'll still return to the data ribbon. You'll return to the outline group and click subtotal. The dialog box returns, and what you're interested in is the Remove All button, and that's in the lower left corner. When you click Remove All is removed in terms of the layout that it provided you, and now we're back to our data looking as it did before. So far we've covered table in a brief way and subtotal feature. So on to sorting. Now you might be thinking as you sit in the audience that, oh, I sort. What will I learn from this? Well, certainly, you've probably used the AZ for ascending order, descending order ZA. But there's been some enhancements to sorting which began at Excel 2007. Prior to 2007, we could only sort up to 3 columns simultaneously. Now you can sort up to 64 simultaneously. Now I'm not going to sort up to 64, but I am going to do multiple sorts. But there's more to it than even that. Now we can sort by color. So if you used a background color for certain numbers, you can now sort by color. You can sort by icons. Now icons might be new to you because that's part of a feature called conditional formatting that came out in Excel 2007. You had conditional formatting in other versions, but not like you do now. I'll explain a little bit about that in another sheet that I'll go to. But let's just start with the basics of the sorting of multiple columns, and then I will have an example to show you how to sort by icons. I'm on the data ribbon in sort and filter group. and the sort button is the one we need. After the sort dialog box appears, the first box says sort by, and I'm going to sort by last name. Sort on values, that's what I'm going to leave it at, but I have clicked the drop down arrow so that you can see that if I had cell color, I can sort by cell color now, font color, and icons, which come through conditional formatting, that last one. But values is what I need. I do need it to stay at A to Z. It is check marked at the top right that my data has headers, meaning that your first row has labels, which ours does, so that will remain. Now looking back at the left of the dialog box I'm in, I want to add another level. Adding another level gives me a then by. I've got two I've added here. The second one's going to be by their first name, still values, still A to Z. And I'll do a third by the office they work in. And then, of course, I could keep going up to 64 if I needed to. And, of course, the priority order, just in case sorting is new for you. Priority order is the last name. So if I had multiple Gillilands, then it would ensure that the first names would be alphabetized within the Gilliland group. It would be a tiebreaker. So if I click on OK, last names are in alphabetical order, followed by first name, followed by office. Now in the case of Anderson, there were no different names for the first. They were all Jennifer. But had there been different names with Anderson, they would have been in alphabetical order. But the main focus of your learning right now is to educate you to the fact that you can do more than 3 columns, and you can sort you can sort by more than just text and numbers. So let's move to a second example to let you see that demonstrated. This one I'm going to do is to sort by icons. And here in this sheet, I have bars in these numbers. This is brand new. I'm going to show you how I got that, and then I'll go about the business of sorting. In Excel, conditional formatting was enhanced. And just to give you a little history so you'll better understand what I'm about to explain, for those in the audience who may never have used conditional formatting, in old versions, conditional formatting, you could have up to 3 criterion for formatting. For example, I might have a column of numbers, and they have to do with hours worked. And we don't do overtime. And we want to be flagged with numbers that are exceeding 40 and have them turn red. That's one condition. Any numbers less than 20 should be flagged in green, and I could have done a third one. That was the old way. I could only specify up to 3 conditions for a selected range. Well, oh my, how things have changed. Now you can even put in charts into your data with conditional formatting. Here's how it works. So you're getting a taste of 2 things, really. You're getting a taste of sorting by icons, which is what we're on, the enhancements to sorting, but you're getting a little taste of the conditional formatting. It requires the conditional formatting that you select what you are going to conditionally format. This feature is on the home ribbon. So on the home ribbon, in the conditional formatting, you can see that you have options to highlight your cells according to values greater than, less than, between. I won't go over the detail of that so we can stay on our main objectives. But what I have that you're seeing is I had chosen icon sets. Icon sets give you directional arrows. For example, red means low numbers and green, obviously high numbers, but I used these bars down here. These are ratings bars, and they represent the values in a select range. But that's how I got those icons. So just know that if you have spreadsheets and anyone has made use of icons for visual depiction of information, that you can sort your information according to those icons. So let's go back to the original point, which is sorting. See, when you look at these numbers, you can tell quickly by the visuals, by the bars, the high numbers and the low numbers. Okay, so back to the original point, sorting. Data ribbon, back to the sort button, and then I'm going to choose sort by sales, and then the sort on, notice the option cell icon. Then it brings up one of the icons, and when I click the down arrow for order, it's only going to give me two choices as to which cell icon that I want to occur first, the one that should be on top. I'm only going to choose that one, click on OK, and when I click out, you can see that is the icon that comes first. So you can sort by a number of things now. I hope that's clear to you and that you get the idea. And when you have time, you should go back and experiment from the home ribbon with your conditional formatting. It's so tempting to want to share with you more, but we'll never make it through all these objectives today if I do. But so consider that a teaser and make use of it when you go back to work or within the spreadsheet that we're going to be sending you. So let's move on and move on to the topic of pay special. In this spreadsheet that you're looking at now, these names that you're seeing, move these in. The names that you're seeing here, these full names, they are the result of a formula that I used, and you'll learn about that formula in one of the other classes that we have coming up. But I joined the first name and the last name together, so these names are the result of a formula. Pay special has many different uses, one of which is the stripping of formulas out of information so that if you removed the supporting data, you wouldn't get an error message like pound ref. For example, if I eliminate columns A and B, that's going to impact C because C is deriving its values from A and B. It's referenced in the formula. I'm going to go ahead and delete it so you can see. And sure enough, there's my pound ref because I eliminated the source that the formula, the cells that the formula was referring to. So let's get back to pay special, which would help us resolve that. In order to strip data of the back-end formula and leave the results, leave it static, you would have to select that information that contains the formula. So I'm going to select all these names, and I'm going to use my shortcut of Control-Shift down arrow to get my names. And then I need to copy. I click, so I'm going to choose Copy and Click. And then all of this occurs in the same place. So I've got it copied. You can right-click to get to Pay Special. You stay up. There we go. However, another way to get to these options is from the clipboard group. And here's the Paste button. But take note that the Paste button has a down arrow. I can get those same options here. And as you look, there's a paste group, a paste values group, and a group called Other Paste Options. Now these paste options give you a live preview, which you should have in your Excel 2010. I'm working with Excel 2013. Not a should, you do. You do have live preview in Excel 2010. So if I come down to this heading where it says Paste Values, the first one is 1, 2, 3, and it says Values when I hover. And when you look in my formula bar, there isn't a reference to my formula called concatenate, because when I make this choice, I am eliminating the formula and keeping the result. Now, I'm clicking on one of the names, and look up here in the formula bar. There is no more formula because I copied and I chose paste special values. Now if I want to eliminate columns A and B, there is no issue now because that data has no back-end formula. Now I'm going to give you another example of paste special. And just let me say as I move to this next spreadsheet that there are many icons that appear. You have many choices that appear when you choose paste special. And in the handout I gave you, when you go back and look at that power handout that we gave you, I do have a table in there that explains all the options you have when you choose paste special and get that drop down with all those choices. But I'm going to give you one final one before I move to our next learning objective. What I have on the screen are 4 titles: expenses, salaries, office supplies, utilities, which are running horizontal. And I want those to be flipped into a vertical layout. So what you would do is choose whatever it is that you want to transpose. That's the proper term for it, is transposing. So if I wanted something to be flipped in a different direction, select the information first. I have. Get a copy of it. I have. And then I'm going to right-click my way through this instead of returning to the down arrow of the paste button. With a right-click, here are those buttons you saw moments ago, but they were in a different place. And this button here, it actually has 2 arrows running to the left and to the right. It's a transpose. When you click transpose, you have to have a destination. Excuse me, I wasn't in that destination. So let me copy that again. The prompt is because I wasn't out of the area that I had selected. So let's copy that again. There we go. Then be sure you move to a place outside of what you have selected. So right-click, transpose. Now they're vertical instead of horizontal. So now I can delete that row that I don't need. So you've seen 2 examples of paste special. I hope you picked something new out of at least one of those, and hopefully your awareness of paste special has been heightened as a result of those 2 examples. All right, I'm going to move onward to understanding cell formats, First, I want to explain, in case you were not aware in your use of Excel. Of course, in Excel, you can type in anything, text, numbers, percentages, etc., but they're formatted in what's called a general format. And when you look at your home ribbon in the number group, the box that appears always tells you what format is being used. And of course, an arrow gives you formats to choose from. But here's the main point that I want to make. When you type in a type of value into a cell, Excel formats that cell for that value. Even if you go back and delete your information, it's still formatted that way. For example, if I type in 6% here in my spreadsheet, 6%. If I go back to that cell, then it's still formatted for, excuse me folks, it's a technical issue going on. Just one moment. While I'm working on that technical issue, I do hate technical issues. I may have to close this and bring it back up. When you, so I'm going to keep talking for the moment, when you click back on that cell, which I'm unable to do at the moment, if I delete what's in that cell, it's still going to maintain that it is a percentage. And in fact, if you'll bear with me for one moment, I am going to have to shut down this spreadsheet and bring up another one, or bring the same spreadsheet up because this one has locked up. And Julie, yes, this spreadsheet is not in a cloud drive, so not sure what's happening.
Trust me, I understand that. It was the day for technical glitches.
In fact,
while
I'm doing this, do we have some questions that I can answer while I'm getting this back up?
I do not see any questions here yet, which is a good sign. There was a little audio cutting in and out at a couple of spots, but other than that, I think.
Yeah, I'm hearing that same thing. You can hear that ding, which means that it has stopped. See if I can get another version of it up, folks. So has anyone learned anything new?
I have. One of the things that questions. Well, I guess I have a question. Can you
go ahead while I work through why Office 2013 has decided to stop? But go ahead.
Can you use subtotals in data that you've converted to a table? So in the very first tab, you showed us how to convert data to a table, and then you showed us in the second tab how to use the subtotal feature. Can you set up subtotals within a table?
Yes, but if I were going to do those, I would probably use a pivot table.
And we have a training session coming up on that, which I definitely need.
Yes, we have a training session coming up on that, and a lot of things would be easier with a pivot table. Like the subtotal feature that we were using is great for quick things. Okay, I'm back in business. Aren't y'all glad? And as an instructor is super glad. All right, here we go. I often tell folks that I'm going to retire from this business needing some type of therapy from technology gone awry. All right, we're back to the 6%, but in 20 years I've simply learned to roll with the flow and backpedal, do whatever's needed to bring back locked up spreadsheets.
Honestly, Donna, let me just insert this real quick. I find that these things happening is actually refreshing and helpful sometimes to the attendees as well, because these things are going to happen to you when you're working on these spreadsheets at your desk, and things are going to happen. You just have to keep troubleshooting your way through them. Don't panic. Just figure it out. Ask questions. Find somebody who can help you, whatever the case may be. But this is the way life runs. Nothing runs perfectly. So it's a good troubleshooting lesson in by itself. So continue.
Well, it actually is, and keep in mind, everyone, that if that happens to you, and it will, that you do have the recovery feature. Microsoft Office has recovery feature built in, so that's why I'm able to get back to the spreadsheet. So going back to the original point is the fact that your spreadsheet's in a general format, and I have 6% in, and I delete it, and I decide I want to type something else in that cell. Well, that cell is still formatted for percentage. If you look up above in my number group, it says percentage. And that's the point I'm making, is that you might want to be, maybe you're going to type a number, 500, something else. As far as Excel is concerned, that cell is still set for percentage. See, I'm typing 500, and I'm getting a percent. And that's not what I want at all. So you would have to reformat that cell. At minimum, I could go back and set it to general, which is a no specific format. So that's one thing for you to keep in mind that I think it really trips up a lot of people, is wondering why is this still formatting as percent when I eliminated the percentage. Now, other things to consider, other types of formats, for example, phone numbers. And what you're And it isn't so much that what I'm training you on is about phone numbers as much as it is to increase your awareness of where special formatting features exist so you know where to get to them. So if I want to format for phone numbers, certainly you've got to select the area you want to format for. I don't know about you all, but I don't like keying in the open-close parentheses and the dash and the spaces. I just want to string the numbers in, press enter, and have it do the rest for me. So when you're formatting for any type of format, whether it's date or otherwise, when you go to the number group, you can access the additional options either by clicking the down arrow here and choosing more number formats. That's one way. My preferred way is the arrow in the lower right corner of the number group, known as the dialog box launcher. When you click, you'll get to the same point. So here in the format cells number are all your categories. And the one that people often don't know exists is about the special format. So the special category is the one that gives you zip code +4, social security number, and then what we want, which is phone number. So those are some things that people often overlook. So it's special, phone number, and now I'm ready to key in. And that's the phone number for most training. So see, I didn't have to do anything. It just string those numbers in. It's a major time saver. Actually, when you take all of this and add it up together, it is exponentially a time saver. And so moving on to your next objective, and that's going to be your AutoSum shortcuts is what we're going to cover. Now some of these you may already know, and if you do, great. So I'm just going to put some numbers in real quick so you can see. Now, your AutoSum button, I feel like those of you in attendance know what it does, which is to automatically sum up all numbers. But often people miss the fact that there are other functions in AutoSum if you click the down arrow. So by clicking the down arrow, you are presented with average, count numbers, max to give you the highest number in the range, min for the lowest number, and the ability to get to more functions to the functions library to create one. So I'm going to choose average here. And then it waits for me to confirm that it has chosen all the right numbers. So that's just really a quick tip. It's just to make you aware that if you didn't already know it, there are other things behind the AutoSum. So that one's a simple one. So on to AutoFill. AutoFill, you may be familiar with the one where we autofill the months, but AutoFill has more to it than just the incrementing of months. But here I have January in. Now the AutoFill, for anyone not familiar, all active cells have a small square in the lower right corner. It's a square known as the AutoFill handle. When you approach that square, your mouse pointer changes to a cross-haired symbol, and it has to be that symbol before you start dragging. So we're going to start off with the most common one that people use, and then I'll move into ones that maybe are new for you, you didn't know. So we'll start with January. Moving to the lower right corner to the square, up pops the black plus sign, and as I click and drag, my months are populated for me. They are incremented. Now in this case, I have a date, and I have July the 1st. But in the second cell, I'm going to put in August 1, 2014. Here's what I'm doing. My goal is to increment by 1 month difference for several cells. So if you put in both values, whether that's a number, 20 and 30, there's 10 difference 10 is the difference between the 20 and 30, then it will increment by that difference accordingly. Now in this case, from July 1 to August 1, there is a 30-day difference. I'm going to select both dates. You have to select both so that Excel can read the differential between the two and then increment accordingly. So moving to the AutoFill square of August 14, I've got both selected. Click, hold, and drag. And as you can see, it has given me a 1 month difference all the way across. I just need to increase my column width for these others, but I'll leave the others as they are. This next example is for first quarter. Now it does make a difference whether or not you use one ST in QTR versus spelling the whole thing out. Excuse me while I get some water. So now if I start with first quarter, move to the AutoFill handle, plus sign in place, click, hold, and drag, and now it has written through first quarter for me. And here is a final one. I have a name here that is the result of a formula. If your cell contains a formula, and if you are copying vertically, you can shortcut the copying of a formula vertically by double-clicking. If you were copying a formula in a horizontal fashion, you'd have to click and drag the fill handle, but I have a need for this to go vertical. Going to the lower right corner of this cell where Antonio is, black plus sign, double-click. And the formula is populated all the way down. So there are some handy uses of AutoFill. I'll give you one final one. If I have a if I precede it with letters, for example, I have 2 here, and there's a difference of 25. I select those 2 cells and drag down. See, the prefix stays the same, and my numbers are being incremented according to the difference between the 2. So the goal here is to give you a wider range look at the use of AutoFill. Keep in mind that Excel evaluates what is in your cell when you start using the AutoFill. And if it doesn't fall into one of these category types like the ones you've seen demonstrated, then it results in simply copying. And if I were to put in Julie's name here, she is not a date, she's not a quarter, she's not a month. And if I click, hold, and drag to the right or down, I just get a lot of Julies. A lot of Julies. So let's see if there's anything we've missed. I don't think so. Looking through my list at the bottom. So here we are at top of the hour, and we have covered pay special. We have covered conversion of information into tables, understanding some special cell formats and issues that people run into, like pre-formatting a cell by virtue of keying in a particular data type and then the cell stays at that data type. So we've covered a lot of different things, and I'm open to questions.
Excellent. Well, if you have a question, you can type it into the questions box on the right-hand side of your screen. And the handout that was sent in conjunction with today's presentation covers the 7 things that we've covered here today also, so you should have some more details there if you didn't catch every last little detail or if the audio was causing a little bit of a snag here or there for you. But we are also going to be covering several of these ideas and topics, the pivot tables, formulas, all of these in upcoming Admin Tech Crash Course sessions as well. We have them advertised, or, well, actually we will have them advertised on our website following today's webinar. So, and we'll also share details in the follow-up emails with you. But if you have a specific question about anything that we've covered today, we can certainly entertain those questions right now. And it looks like Heather has a question. She says, how will you communicate your ongoing Excel series? It's in our newsletter, Heather. We also publish it on our website. There's an Admin Tech Crash Course page, and right now it only lists today's session, but we're actually in the process today of updating that, and we will have all of the upcoming sessions for the next 3 months listed later this afternoon. So we will have the upcoming sessions in there, and we'll also include that in the replay email that we send after today's session. Maria asks, can you please quickly show how you can make the table in the first tab again? So that was on the very first example of taking the data and converting it to a table.
I'd be glad to. So a repeat of that, is that what we're being asked?
Yes, just show her how we took, how you got the data.
Okay, step 1 is always click inside your data. Don't be outside the data. So step 1, click in your data. Step 2, click the Insert tab. Step 3, click Table. Make certain that your range is the correct range, and that would make step 4 the click OK. And then you can see that you have your filter arrows at the top, and you have one ribbon of tools devoted to the table, and it's the Design ribbon. If you click outside the table, you are no longer in the context of the table, and therefore you will have no Design ribbon. But once you return to the context of the table, clicking inside, your Design ribbon returns. Does that help?
I think it does.
Good.
All right, Kelly asks if this will be recorded and sent out to each of the attendees. Yes, Kelly, it will be. And Maria says, yes, that answered her question. So Sarah has an excellent question as well. She says, how do you reverse concatenate or split text in different cells? Is that something you can show us quickly?
I can. It's part of our upcoming webinar on formulas, but I would be glad to. Now, when I'm asked reverse, I want to make certain I'm understanding. Am I being asked to demonstrate the formula or being asked to demonstrate the removal of the formula like we did in the pay special? Which is it?
If I understand what she's asking, if you've got a column with first and last names in it, how do you split them into a first name only, last name only column? So instead of bringing them together like you had done on the one example, how do you do the reverse and split it out?
Okay, I think I know. Let me get a different spreadsheet for this. Make it a little larger here. Now, am I being asked how to split that name into 2 columns?
Yeah, so like,
all right.
I know I've done it before. I can't remember what the actual function is, but where Donna shows up in column B and Gilliland shows up in column C.
Well, there are multiple ways, and one quick way is, now if I had several of these, several names, I'd select them. But I just have the one. You would select all that you needed to select, all the names, and go to the Data ribbon. And from the Data ribbon in the Data Tools is a Text to Columns. And when you choose Text to Columns, you are thrown into a wizard. And I won't explain all the details in the wizard, but it is set for delimited. Now, delimited simply means that it's looking for a separator. That separator could be a space, it could be a tab. So when I go to the next step, it's assuming that my separator is a tab, but it's not. It's a space. And I'll deselect tab and let it know that it is a space that separates it. And then in the data preview at the bottom, it shows a vertical line showing me what I'm going to get when I finalize. And I'm just going to have it finish. And then it is in another column. I just don't have it as a big font like the first one was. Let me make that. There we go. See? Now it's 2 columns.
Perfect.
So that was the Data ribbon, Text to Columns.
Yes, okay, perfect. And that is so much easier to do in these late 2010 and 13 than even, maybe 2007 did it as well, but this is one of those features that Excel has certainly made it much easier to do versus how they used to have you do it, so awesome. Now Heather is asking, can you repeat the concatenation process and bringing the first and last names together into one column? So show her what the formula is for combining column A and B to have both names appear together.
So Heather, you want a sneak peek into the next webinar. Is that right, Heather?
She does.
And we're going to make that happen for you, Heather, right now. Okay. Now, so what I'm going to do is return to the spreadsheet where the first and last name columns are. So I would have to make a place for it, and I'm going to do that at column D. I'm going to right-click D and insert because this is where I want it to go. I'm just putting in a heading. So here's how it works. Now this one's a little detailed, but you're going to have they have a recording, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So we do start off with equal. It's a formula. I'm going to run through this as though on the assumption that you do know how to write basic formulas, so I'm just going to write it out for us for time's sake. The name of the function is concatenate. Now, as soon as I type a letter after the equal sign, Excel begins to bring up the auto list of functions. So I typed up the CON so I could get to concatenate and not have to continue typing, and I'll double click. Now there's concatenate with the open paren. And at this point, you have to decide, do I want the last name to be first in the column, which you might if you wanted to alphabetize later by last name, or do I want the first name? That's your choice. Either way, you've got to pick which cell content you want to come in first. I'm going to choose first name. And then the help at the bottom of all formulas tells you what you should do first and next, and it's showing that I should put a comma in before I tell it what to do next. Now here's where it gets special. I can't go choose C2 now because if I do, there'll be no separating space between the first and last name. So when you're writing a formula and you want that formula to return something literal, like a space or a comma, then you must put it in open close quotation marks. So after the comma from B2, I need a space, and I'm going to have to start with an open quote, but I'm also going to include a comma, a literal comma. So I'll go ahead and put the comma. Now I can press my space bar to get my space, but now I have to cap with a close quote because that's all I wanted, the comma, the space, and those literals have to be enclosed in those quotation marks. The next comma outside the quotation mark is to signal Excel that I am ready to tell it the next cell that I want it to join with, which is going to be C2. And then you'll cap with a closed paren because you always have to have a matching paren. You know, for each open paren, you've got to have a closing paren. And when I press the Enter key, I will get the first name with a comma, a space, followed by the last name. Then I can use that double-click trick of AutoFill, and I have them all.
That was a nice little bonus. Thank you for sharing that.
Well, if you like that bonus, that webinar we have about formulas is going to have lots of goodies like that.
Yeah, I'm just as excited about that one as I was today. So there were a few things about today that I knew, but there's plenty that I learned brand new as well. So this has been fantastic. All right, let's see if there are any other quick questions here. And if not, we will be, again, sharing the recorded replay of today's webinar along with the handout link and details about our upcoming sessions. This was just the basics beginning session for Excel. We wanted to give you a little deep dive into some of the features we thought everybody should know for getting started, and then the other sessions will add on to this or go a little deeper into some of these topics specifically. So we want to thank all of you for being with us today and for asking questions and being participants in the webinar. It helps make it more valuable and effective for everybody when we have participation like that. And I would like to thank Donna for her participation and being here with us. And I'm actually going to switch back over here real quick, Donna, to my slides so that we can show people how to connect with us. If you haven't connected with us on our website at allthingsadmin.com, we encourage you to do that. You can become a fan of All Things Admin on Facebook. You can also become a fan of most training on Facebook. And you can connect with me on Twitter. Actually, I need to add Donna's information on here too. Donna is also on Twitter at most training.
Donna
And,
Gilliland.
or sorry, at Donna Gilliland.
Twitter is Donna Gilliland.
Yep. And Donna is also on LinkedIn. So if you search for either one of us on those 3 social media sites, you're sure to find us. And we look forward to having you join us again for a future Admin Tech Crash Course session. Thanks again for being here today. Have a fantastic afternoon, everyone.
Bye, everyone.